Be showing you 5 Minecraft house pranks. Now, what is a house prank exactly? I don't know, I've just made it up essentially, but if your friends make houses, kind of like the ones in the background, I've got a series of tricks or things that you can do to prank them and generally make your life in Minecraft servers a little bit more fun and exciting. Now remember, before we begin, if you're going to be doing any of these pranks, please make sure that you do not grief someone that cannot take a joke or you know it will upset them. This is all meant to be in good fun, only do it to your friends, and remember, always fix the mess once it's over and done with. Okay, let's get into it. The first one is probably the funnest one that you can do. So if you've got a friend's house that kind of looks like this, it's very small, and you've got some very defined shapes, this is what we can do. We can turn this into a monster. And I mean that in a literal sense. You can take a few blocks, it shouldn't be too expensive, and just start messing with it. Essentially, we can make this house alive so that when they return from their mining or whatever, and they look at the front of the house, they go, what on earth? So there is a little bit of finesse to this one. Using what they've made into a face can be a little bit tricky. So we've taken the corners of this house and we've added a couple of eyes with buttons on them and a tongue. So you could leave it at that, you could just add a face, it's very easy to remove. But if you're like me and you want to be a little bit more extra, you can take this to a whole new level. So as you can see, they've kind of got this little dormer that sticks out. Now, the eyes are either side of it, so we could actually make this. Trying to use the overall face of a building and integrate it into a Minecraft monster face. So as you can see, we've got some eyebrows, we can add some hair using fence. Like, you can really go to town on this, and it's literally up to your imagination how you want to do it. So sometimes people make houses that kind of look like a face anyway. It's actually quite difficult to avoid that, but you can really take advantage of this. And because a house is sitting on the...
What do you want to be when you grow up? I'm gonna be an astronaut.
You can put your mind in
the floor, you can actually make it seem like it's got arms and legs as well. Just by taking a few blocks and making the arms sort of jut out, you can make giant fists made out of logs or whatever. Use the same palette that they have for their house to make sure that it all fits and works together. Now, the last thing you can do is add another set of limbs, but this time it's legs that are sort of jutting out on the floor, so it kind of looks like the house is sitting back and stuck in the ground. It's all about the positioning of the limbs and the facial expression that are going to make this look wacky. And then what we can do as well is add a giant foot on the end of these legs. And to make it even funnier, we made it a human foot. You can really go to town on this and do what you want, and that's kind of the beauty of turning someone's house into a monster. It doesn't even have to be a monster, it could be a human, it could be an alien, it could be literally anything. Now, we decided to go for human feet because you could do this really neat trick with this particular block, and then add a few pressure plates on the end to be toes, and then you could actually use some leaves as, like, little hair on top of it, like massive hobbit feet, and then you basically do that again, replicate it over, and you've got yourself a pretty funny looking house. So just imagine it. They've come home and they see, what is that? What is going on? Then they go around the other side of the house and they see this. Pretty funny. There's no destruction involved, well, maybe a little bit, but you're just editing what is already there. Now, this one was a pretty cool one, but now let's actually go into a proper prank. Here's the next house. This is number 2, and this requires your friend to have built their house on a beach or on a gravel pit or whatever. You need a falling block underneath. So what we do is remove all the sand underneath their house, and it is a very, very lengthy task. Now, what you need to make sure you do is essentially remove the sand layer and make sure you mimic that pattern into the ground, so that when we replace this later on, it looks like nothing has changed at all. There's not a block out of place, and that's very, very important if you want to remain kind of subtle in how you do it. If they've seen that loads of the terrain has changed, they might be suspicious, especially if you're a kind of prankster like me and can't get away with it all the time. So it should look like this, where you've removed all the sand and made a gigantic hole. Some of you may even know where I'm going with this, as I did show this prank on my Mumbo versus Grian collab. So you can make it deep enough so that when they fall, they're going to die as well from the fall damage. So the next stage is where the technical part comes in. You need to get yourself a grass block or a dirt block, and you need to make sure you go down 3 blocks from the surface, and then you remove the 2 middle ones, add a rose block or a 2 high flower, and then you can place the sand over the top. Now the trick is, if you remove the bottom half of it, the sand will stay, and that is actually what happens when you do it multiple times. So I think you can tell where we're going with this. We're going to cover the whole thing in sand on top of rose bushes. Now this is where it gets dangerous. You need to make sure that you hit only the bottom half of the rose bush when you're doing this. Otherwise, you could end up with a lot of sand on the floor and you will have to start all over again. And trust me, it's happened a few times, so better safe than sorry. Take it slow and make sure you get it right. If you update the block in any way, it will all fall down. So that means you need to make sure that the pressure plate that you place outside the door is there right at the start. And then when they walk in, the whole thing goes tumbling down. Now you may have noticed that she actually went inside and didn't actually fall, so you can actually replace a block or 2. Next up, we've got our third one. Now this is probably one that you are expecting. This is a very obvious one, but it's still fun to do. If you're a prankster and you like to do some very simple things, you could just take their door or window or whatever they've made and just move it to the other side of the house. Just move it around, play with the windows, just, you know, mimic stuff around. I've moved the door onto that side so that when they come home, they're like, where's my door gone? I could have sworn. You can make them feel like they're crazy. Another thing that you can do is take it block by block and put the whole thing upside down, as you can see on the hill there. That will take you a very, very long time. This prank is sort of well known, so I'm not going to spend too much time covering it. Next up, we have a pretty cool one, but it's, again, very, very simple. All you do is you make a secret base inside your friend's house at all times. You're basically messing with them all the time. You probably won't be that subtle about it. You could just walk in their house and go down here. Obviously, the joke here is that you've been living in their house without them knowing for a long time. So imagine they come home and you just walk in and go, "You're right, Jim," and you go downstairs and you go into your little base here. Again, this is one that is fairly well known. We do it on the Evo server all the time, and I've got a very good one for the last one. So this next one is probably a bit weird when it comes to making pranks, and it's going to be a bit difficult to explain, so this one's going to be slightly different in format. Essentially, what you need is someone that's made a house, and they have a bedroom, they have a start point. When they die, they respawn here, or perhaps this is where they log out. So you need someone with a sizable house with many, many rooms. Now, the idea is that you tell a story in their house. Now, when I concepted this, it's something like this. So you start off with something like this. This is Fezbot. I've invented him a long time ago. He's a happy dispenser, and you can wave at him and whatever else. He's just a happy guy. That's all that there is to it. But if you made one of these in every room, and perhaps you used a different block every time, you could, like, have signs that say, "Hi, I'm Fezbot," and then you go to the next room and he's like, "Fezbot doesn't like you," with this grumpy face. Anyway, that's the idea. The idea is you tell a story through things. Now, it wouldn't be much of a prank or whatever if I just set one up myself and then recorded myself going through it and pretending to have a good time or whatever. So what I've done, and I'm regretting it by the second, is I asked Dom and Gareth and Jay to make one of these for me, and I'm going to experience it for the first time now, which is why I've been facing this way the whole time. He's right there! He's watching me. Okay. Alright, here we go. So now we're going to experience the prank. So imagine either I've died, or that I've just respawned here, or this is where I've just logged in for the first time. Okay. Good morning, sir. My name is GoBot. Don't ask me how I got in. No. Come on, let's go and make some breakfast. Alright. Alright. This is what I mean. This is where we're going with this. Down here, sir. Come on. Not yet leaving just yet, sir. Nice one, sir. What? I can't even read. Not leaving just yet. Haha, nice one, sir. Okay, we're not allowed to leave yet. Where do we go?